When we think of airports, we tend to think of people. Passengers crowding through security or stuffing luggage into overhead bins, of tearful partings and joyous greetings. Indeed, in 2019, more than 45 million passengers made their way through Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport. That made it one of the busiest airports in the United States and one of the top 50 in the world. But like airports around the country and the world, Houston Intercontinental also plays another important role. That role is the movement of goods. Exports and imports that are often of high value, lightweight, needed just in time, or some combination of the three. U.S. airports, in fact, handled better than $1.2 trillion in exports and imports in 2019, about 28% of all U.S. trade. At Houston Intercontinental, 2019 was a record year for trade, in a year when U.S. trade fell 1.51%. Houston's trade increased 7.91% to $15.25 billion. That trade occurred with more than 200 countries on every continent save for Antarctica. It involved more exports than imports, meaning Houston was one of the few among the nation's more than 450 airports, seaports, and border crossings with a trade surplus. Houston Intercontinental trade with 3 countries exceeded $1 billion: Germany, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. Those 3 alone accounted for more than a quarter of all Houston trade. The previous year, its trade with China had also topped $1 billion. But the trade war took a bite out of that in 2019. As the map shows, the circle size represents the total trade with each country. Houston Intercontinental recorded strong trade with Asian nations, including China, but also Singapore and Japan. Middle Eastern nations like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and the South American nation of Brazil. The map is from the first ever Houston Intercontinental TradeNumbers, which my company, World City, produced in conjunction with the airport, relying on U.S. Census data to determine not only top trade partners, but top exports and top imports. You can download a copy at ustradenumbers.com. Houston's exports, which also grew in 2019, up 8.99%, while U.S. exports fell, show the diversity of the greater Houston economy and its importance as a global hub. The top 18 categories, all worth more than $100 million each, also showed the importance of the energy sector to Houston, with hydraulic equipment, heavy machinery, and taps, cocks, and valves making the list. But the list also included the broad category of aircraft and parts, cell phones and equipment, computers, medical technology, computer chips, aircraft engines and parts, and even satellite technology. All told, it came to $9.3 billion. Imports fell just a shade under $6 billion at $5.95 billion, while 18 of the top exports topped $100 million in value. On the import side, that total was 10. 7 of those 10 categories also appeared on the export list. What does that mean? Some percentage of 2 of those, computers in the category of cell phones and related equipment, could have been part of what is called transshipment, perhaps imported from Asia into Houston and then exported to Latin America. Another 2, aircraft engines and aircraft parts, point to an integrated supply chain, with some parts manufactured or assembled offshore and needed in the United States, while others were manufactured or assembled in the United States and needed offshore. Medical equipment and technology tie into Houston's stature as a medical treatment and research center. There are, of course, those categories that point to Houston's role in energy, in oil and gas exploration and refining. Hydraulic equipment, taps, cocks, and valves, generally for pipes and tanks, and heavy machinery. At most airports, some of those exports and imports fly in all cargo planes, but most fly in the belly of passenger planes, right underneath those passengers. For the 45 million passengers making their way through Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport in 2019, they almost certainly never saw those valves, the hydraulic equipment, the engine parts, the computer chips, or medical technology. They weren't aware of the role of the customs brokers, the freight forwarders, the truckers, might not have driven past any warehouses. While Bush Intercontinental played its role in the global export-import trade market, $15.25 billion in trade with more than 200 countries, 18 export categories above 100 million, and 10 import categories also above 100 million, they were trying to remain patient while getting through security, or doing their best to find overhead space for their suitcases, texting someone that they had landed, or waiting for the gate agent to announce boarding would soon begin for Group 1 or Group 2 or Group 4. Someday soon, those will be common sights and sounds again.